So I'm at a stage now where I'm ready to put an image into my document. Images, as we know, are very handy because, for example, I might be describing a complex layout of, in this case, electrical pins, and describing that in words is going to be very difficult. So at my document here, I say this sensor, so it connects directly to our breadboards and has a straightforward set of connections which are shown in the pinout diagram and now what I want to say is figure whatever. So maybe this is my first figure, it should be figure 1. If it's my 10th figure, it should be figure 10. Now, I don't want to write figure 1. The reason for that is because as I edit, I might add additional figures. So I might go up and maybe here I want to add a figure demonstrating different types of lab equipment, whatever it's going to be, and then it becomes figure 1. And so what I would have to do is go through my entire document and make sure all of my references to my figures are labeled. That is too difficult, and you don't need to do it. Microsoft Word can do that for you. So I'm going to take this away. And the first thing I'm going to do is put the figure in there, because what I need to do is create a figure that I can then refer to called a cross-reference. And so here's my figure, I have it in my folder, and you can do this in multiple ways. I'm just going to drag and drop it where I want it. So if I drag from one folder and I drop it, which is right here, now in our report formatting, we want this to be centered. So all of our reports, images and tables must be centered. So I'm going to click on the image, and I'm going to center it. I can do that in multiple ways. So if I go home, for example, I just click on the center button here. And now you might notice it's going to, unfortunately, center this as well, the paragraph above it. I do not want that. So to avoid that, I just need an extra space in the middle, just a little bit of extra stuff there. And now I can take my paragraph and I can left align it, and now we're fine. So I just needed an extra space at the end of my paragraph, and I wanted to show you what that looks like. Okay, now in terms of my my picture here, I don't have any captions whatsoever, so I'm going to add one. And the act of adding a caption also allows me to add a reference. In this case, it's going to show up as figure 1. So I'm going to click on the figure and right click, and you'll see I have insert caption here. So I click on insert caption, and notice how it automatically says figure 1 for me. I don't want to touch that, but if I did for whatever reason, I would click here and I might call it equation figure or table or whatever it is, but it's a figure, and I'm just going to leave it as that. Now, one subtlety here is that in IEEE format, it should be figure 1 with a colon. So I'm going to make sure that colon is there. And now what is it? Well, I need to give myself a descriptive explanation. Now I can edit the caption once I'm done, and I'm going to have to because this is not my figure. I need to add a reference. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to use the caption dialog just to write the basic text of my caption, but then I'm actually going to edit it in the Microsoft Word window. And so figure 1, well, it is the pinout diagram of TMP36 sensor. Yeah, that's what it happens to be. And I'm basically done. I don't need to worry about anything else. I'm going to add a little bit of extra detail once I'm done this, so I just click on OK here. And you'll notice right away that for figures, Microsoft Word defaults to putting the caption at the bottom, and the default font is just fine. So we're not going to change anything. But you'll also notice that my cursor is here because Microsoft Word says, okay, maybe you want to add something, in my case, a reference. So I'm going to add a reference because this is not my diagram. I got it actually from the same place that I got this reference here, so reference number 5, and when you reuse the same source, so when you're using the exact same document, unless there is a reason not to, you're going to use the same citation number. So the only real reasons that you would not want to do that is if the document is, for example, a book that contains many other sub-documents, and you're citing, say, chapter 1 is written by one person for one thing, and chapter 7 is written by another for another thing. And so then they might be two different citations. But because I'm using the exact same document, I want to use the exact same citation, and Microsoft Word lets me do that in a really nice way. And I basically go, again, I'm at home, so I want to go to References, Insert Citation, and well, it was the Analog Devices one right here, so I just click on it. And Microsoft Word adds citation, and notice how it's citation number 5. The same as over here, citation number 5, because it's referencing the exact same document. So those citation numbers don't mean, look, in terms of this is the 5th citation I've used, so this one then would be the 6th, for example. No, instead it says it is the 5th document in my references section. Everything in this course absolutely has to be cited if you didn't make it on your own. And so because I did not make this diagram, I have to cite it to give appropriate credit and also to allow the reader to find the document and see this picture in more detail and context. Okay, so we began this by saying we need to describe our figure. You always want to make sure that your figures are introduced in the text before they show up. And so now I need to create a cross-reference so that we can actually have a reference to this figure. So just in case things change, that cross-reference will also change. So to do that, what I'm going to do is, if you look on the references page, so it's a cross-reference, so it's similar to a reference, and I have a ton of options, but here I have this thing called cross-reference. What this does is it creates a piece of text that says, in my case it'll say figure 1, but it is cross-referenced to this particular figure number here. So if I add a new figure above it, and this becomes figure 2 or figure whatever, the cross-reference will also automatically update. It is a great feature in Microsoft Word, especially if you're referring to a bunch of figures and a bunch of tables. So let's click it, insert a cross-reference, and now you'll see I have a number of options. So reference type is a numbered option, but what am I referencing? Well, it's not a paragraph number. Instead, it is a figure. So none of these are relevant. So let's take a look at my other options. What about reference type? Okay, here we go. So now I have endnotes, equations, figures, everything else. It's a figure, so I'm going to click on that. And now we have to be very careful. I do not want a reference to the entire caption. I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then I'm going to take it away. So if I say everything is fine, let's default, what I'm going to see is this whole thing, figure 1 pinout diagram of TMP36 sensor, and I do not want that. I'm going to remove it. Okay, and you'll notice that it selects the entire thing. The entire cross-reference has to go. It's not a bunch of text, it's one piece of text that is referenced altogether. In IEEE format, what I want is to go here and say I only want the label and number. So if I click on that, what I'm going to see is figure 1 only. I insert, and it says the pinout diagram in figure 1. Now in terms of formatting, I have multiple options. I could just put a period here, but because the figure follows directly afterwards, I'm just going to put in a colon, indicating that this figure is showing up next. And that's how you insert, cite, caption, and cross-reference a figure.